We continue our look at the story of Jesus told by Jesus' apostle Matthew. We are in this selection looking at verse 7 of Matthew chapter 17, and I will be reading in the Norley translation. Verse 7 says this. Jesus then came to them, touched them, and said, "Get up, don't be afraid." I have no reason to doubt the reaction of the disciples to the voice that they heard. We can understand that. Now let's put that in a context. The birth of your first child is a wonderful experience. The joy of experiencing that moment is overwhelming. Then there comes the moment when you take that child home. The support of the hospital is no longer there. In the first few days, maybe even weeks, parents can experience moments of complete terror. Yes, that baby is cute, but you have to take care of that child. There are moments when you realize how dependent that child is on you. There are moments where you may begin to question whether you can do this. The experiencing of parenting the first child can at times be completely overwhelming. If you use the image of especially parents with their first child as a metaphor, then you, I think, can begin to capture a sense of the feeling that those three apostles felt on the mountain. I think in that moment, these disciples understood what they were involved in. In that moment, they had an extreme crisis about their ability to not only do the job, but their own worthiness to do that job. They were not the first to feel that way. Isaiah the prophet said, "Woe to me," I cried. "I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among the people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." Isaiah chapter 6, verse 5, and the New International Version. In that moment, the disciples on that mountain could see God and see themselves, and the gap between them was so great. They knew who and what they were and were not. Christian ministry can be destroyed by reducing it to the level of a career. A career is what you pursue because you like it. A career is where job security, benefits, and a pension are important. A career is about what makes you look good. A career is about the pursuit of success. The tragedy is that the call to Christian ministry can be performed by career-minded people. People who use the church to promote who and what they are. People who use the church to provide a comfortable and stable life. People for whom the faith is becomes simply the language by which they do the job. The disciples, in a moment of time, understood that this was going to be no 9-to-5 experience. They understood in that moment what they were getting themselves in. And I think in that sense, we can understand that they probably were thinking about wanting to bail out of things. Moses put it well when he said this in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 11. And he is in a conversation with God, and he says to God, New International Version, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Moses was not being deferent. Moses, on the one hand, was looking at who God was, and on the other hand, understood the enormity of the tasks that God was putting before him. The technical term is that Moses was bailing, and I think that was a feeling that the apostles felt on the mountain. And then to a degree, I think that was the feeling that Isaiah had when he encountered God in Isaiah chapter 6. The disciples on the mountain, like Moses and Isaiah, were exposed to who God was and who they were. Christian ministry is only achieved and accomplished when it is nurtured in a vision of who God is. This is what makes Christian ministry Christian ministry. This is what gives it its distinctive flavor, the nature of the job. You see, if you really do not understand who God is, then you cannot really begin to understand what the church is about and what the church needs to be about. Christian ministry properly understands that we bridge the gap between a holy God and an almighty God and an unholy and unrighteous people who are far too often content in their ways and in their doings. Is it any wonder that Moses or Isaiah or the disciples wanted to bail